My name is Nick Jackson, and I'm a senior editor in an editorial department. I oversee our Archives Direct suite of products, which consist mainly of diplomatic and international relations material sourced exclusively from the National Archives in London. And I'm here today to talk about the next Archives Direct resource, which is Foreign Office Consulate and Legation Files, China, 1830 to 1939, Section 1. It's a four-section resource, which I'll come on to in a moment. And this consists, it's about 98% in fact, mainly of bound volumes of the FO228 series from the National Archives, which is the Foreign Office, Consulate and Legation General Correspondence. So that's 1,285 documents in total in this section. If we can have a look at the next slide, please. Thank you. So what is FO228? So it is the files of the British legation and consulates in China. So if anyone's asking themselves this question, what is a legation? A legation was an old category of diplomatic mission, now obsolete, which was more or less equivalent to an embassy, but which ranked below it in the traditional diplomatic hierarchy. So it's essentially the British embassy. And these files constitute, centuries worth of mainly correspondence, but also other papers exchanged between these diplomatic posts and Whitehall, which document, of course, the history of China and more specifically its relations with Britain from, 100 years, 1830 to 1939, and centered on the significant cities, mainly ports, in which Britain had a significant diplomatic and economic presence. It strikes me, Beth mentioned earlier, Francis Brady with the theatrical collection. If he was born in China during this period, he may very well turn up in these consular files somehow. Section 1 covers the period 1830 to 1895, so the second two-thirds of the 19th century. And then the three subsequent modules will be released over the next few years, modules 2 and 3 in 2026, and module 4 in 2027, taking us all the way up to the Second World War. So if we could just have a look at the next slide. So this is just the document list of the resource. It's obviously very small snapshot of the volumes, but you can see they have very general titles. And they're often actually bound with wooden boards, which you can't really see here, but that's just, when you're handling them, that's the first thing you notice. Why are these bound in wood? I'm sure there is a good reason, but I don't know what it is. Anyway, so what's actually in them? So module 1 covers a very turbulent time in Chinese history and in Sino-British relations, beginning with Britain's pursuit of the illegal opium trade and the First Opium War that followed that, 1839 to 42. That was ended by the Treaty of Nanjing, which established the first treaty ports from which Britain was permitted to trade into China, and also saw Hong Kong ceded to the British as well. In this period also we see the Taiping Rebellion, which was a 14-year civil war, which was extraordinarily destructive and led to enormous upheaval and the deaths of, historians estimate, anywhere between 5 and 10% of China's entire population. It was an extraordinary thing to happen. And it concludes this period with the First Sino-Japanese War in 1894-5, which is fought for control of Korea. So, of course, international relations, diplomacy, warfare are enormously significant themes in this material, and of course also trade and the economy. But also there is material on public health, on missionaries. There was a very significant Christian missionary presence in China during this entire period. Migration, and of course the coming rumblings of the revolution, which was to happen in the early years of the 20th century. As I say, it's mainly correspondence, this material, but there are also photographs, lots and lots of maps, and particularly architectural drawings. If you look at the navigation bar on the top of the screenshot I've got there, you can see we have a map gallery, which will also contain many drawings, many of the consular and legation buildings. There are an awful lot of those. There are plentiful official reports, official papers. There is artwork, often of a propagandistic political nature. And there are printed books and pamphlets too. So in terms of a few topical highlights, I mentioned Hong Kong. Of course, there's plentiful information on the beginning growth of Hong Kong as one of China's and the British Empire's most important entrepôts. There's plenty of information on smuggling and piracy, despite the opening up of China to official foreign trade. There's still plenty of that going on. There's a lot of material on extraterritoriality. So if you were a British or other a subject of another foreign power which has signed a treaty with China, the unequal treaties as they're generally referred to now, you were subject to the laws of your home country in China. So there's an awful lot of material on extraterritoriality as applied to the British. And we also have 2 essays actually on life in the treaty ports and the work of the consuls in them. There's also plentiful material on emigration of Chinese labourers. There were an awful lot of Chinese labourers who went to various parts of the British Empire, most notably the Caribbean and South Africa. And also there is correspondence with the British colonial government in India, which was the source of most of the opium, of course, which the British were trying to sell into China. So as I say, it's mostly FO228 class, almost entirely, but we do include also 2 other classes, FO231 and FO232, which are respectively registers and indexes to the FO228 correspondence. So they function as finding aids, essentially. And also we include items which the National Archives have extracted from their items which were originally included with the FO228 volumes, which the National Archives have extracted for safer storage, which we have obviously united with their original accompanying documents. All of this material, at least all of it in Latin text, has gone through HDR and text recognition, so it's all full text searchable, despite mostly being manuscript. There are about 60 documents in this resource which are entirely in Chinese, so we can't HDR those, at least not yet. And as I say, there are also contextual essays by leading academics. I've mentioned the treaty ports and the consular activities. There's also an essay on the history of the FO228 series as an archival collection and how to use it. And there's one on the periodization of Chinese history during this era. And also we have a video essay. I mentioned the Chinese language content. We have a video essay focusing on that as well. Thank you very much. As I say, this is part of our Archives Direct suite, and like all Archives Direct products, it is cross-searchable with all the others through our dedicated Archives Direct search portal, which you can see here. The most pertinent one to mention, I think, is our Foreign Office Files for China resource, 1919 to 1980, which, of course, overlaps thematically and contextually with this material. This is, that is rather original Foreign Office correspondence rather than consular material, but of course there's an enormous contextual overlap. Yeah, and I just thought I'd finish with a few interesting images from this material. So this is a poster, a political propaganda poster, I suppose, distributed on the streets of China, one of a set of 3 that's in the material, during the Sino-French War of 1884, which was fought for control of Vietnam, or influence in Vietnam. And when I first saw this poster, I didn't know any context, and I can't read Chinese, but I looked at the people who were fighting, and I thought, well, those look like very French hats, and indeed they are French. Yeah, that's one of the most interesting artworks, visual propaganda in the material. The next slide is this is a map of the Chinese railway system. So obviously Britain was alive to the opportunities to be gained from working on Chinese infrastructure and building that. That's just a map of the system at the end of the 19th century. And then finally, this is a letter about a trade dispute between some Western and Chinese traders, I think, about trading opium. I could be wrong. This was highlighted by Lars Lahmann of SOAS, who has contributed to our video essay on the Chinese material. And this dispute was escalated all the way to the Chinese Foreign Office. Yeah, although it is material from the consuls, there's an awful lot of to and fro with the Chinese government as well in the material, which this is just an example. Yeah, that's me done. I hope that was interesting.